Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. Our special guest this evening is Ed Holloway, who has been a state representative and is still keeps up a lot with what's going on in Frankfurt and the federal government, and it's great to have you with us.
Thank you. We've got several issues. I'd like to start with what's going on in the Middle East and what's been happening. There are now 57 countries that are the Muslim nations, the greatest since the beginning of time, that are still expanding
Really?
all
It's
over.
the biggest.
But there's 57 states that are Muslim states that are part of the United Nations. And the United Nations right now is concentrating on whether the human rights aspect of the Washington Redskins and whether that name should be changed. This is where the UN is concentrating. No mention at all of the hundreds of Christians that are being persecuted throughout the Muslim world.
That's right.
There are hundreds almost daily that are being executed, who are being slaughtered, and men, women, and children at every level, and nobody is mentioning that at all. It's a crisis. A congressional committee has started investigating and finding this thing is such an alarming rate. And the Al-Qaeda that was supposedly to go beyond the run is in a tremendous growth period. The whole Middle East is in turmoil. And we can go back to what happened in Benghazi and the fact that everything has been disregarded as far as that's concerned. There is no person that's been arrested, nobody incarcerated.
And
all of that,
four Americans were
four
killed.
Americans were slaughtered in a deliberate terrorist attack. The military and Pernella, who was the Secretary of Defense, and all of those within minutes knew that it was an organized terrorist attack. They went to the White House. Pernella and General Carter Ham had told them that his report directly from there was that it was a terrorist attack, and that was disregarded because the election was coming up.
Yeah.
And right after that, in 6 consecutive times, it was said that this was a spontaneous eruption caused by a video that had been produced by someone in Hollywood or somewhere in California that had caused this massive attack on our embassy consulate in Benghazi. And then in the aftermath of all that, the only person that has ever been arrested and put in jail was the guy that developed that
innocent guy.
That video that nobody has seen. And this is the kind of thing, everything has been concentrated on elections and keeping control and keeping power. And this goes back a long way, even to the point that when the Democratic Party was hijacked by the progressives and the liberals, this had been going on, and they're continuing to build their base. This is why Eric Holder, instead of concentrating on what's happened with the IRS and all the other issues, has moved down the line, and now he's concentrating on gay rights and every other issue that he could come up. One of the other things that is very important to building the base is making sure the convicted felons are restored to their right to vote. That's another block that they can add to their total. Of all of the recipients of all of the welfare and all the other things, if we're not reelected and our people are not elected, then you're going to lose all the benefits and things that you're now being furnished by the government. And it's reached such proportions that we're ignoring the crisis in the Middle East.
And all the
Benghazi
scandals.
was just a sample of it.
Yeah.
Syria, the number of foreign terrorists that are coming in from Europe, from the United States, and others that are joining Al-Qaeda in the battle at Syria and are helping and assisting in the crucifying the number of Christians and destroying complete towns and churches all over the Middle East. It started with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt.
Yeah.
As soon as they were
The Arab Spring
elected,
and all that.
and with our help, the Brotherhood was put back in power in Egypt. A friendly dictator, if you will, of the United States was put out of office. The Muslim Brotherhood came into power, and within days, Christians were being persecuted.
Yeah.
Some were actually thrown from windows in apartment buildings into the street, and the Al-Qaeda elements took over the various small towns and communities.
And we don't hear about all this.
And this has all been ignored by the media. The media concentrates on, well, things that are
What they're told to
irrelevant to
concentrate on.
whatever is really, really going on in the United States.
Yeah.
And we fought this problem, and it continues, and the average individual has to take responsibility for informing himself of all these things and to become politically active. And by that, it means nothing more than making a phone call to your friends and others, informing them of the things you're learning, of helping candidates. This 2014 election is going to be extremely critical. And we're looking at no help from any of the traditional agencies of the government. I've talked to a couple of friends that were former members of the FBI who have now retired that are very concerned about the credibility of the FBI. The FBI is losing its credibility. The instructions that they're apparently receiving, it has to come from the top. There have been no investigations. Not a single member of the Tea Party was ever questioned about what had happened with the IRS and their investigation into what was going on. And that was where the alleged, a couple of people in Cincinnati were the responsible.
They tried to.
They've covered that up. Lerner took the Fifth Amendment, would not testify. She's now retired with full benefits and all that. These are the kind of things that are going on at multiple levels that we're not hearing about, but each one of which is diluting the Constitution almost on a daily basis.
Now, what can we do about all this?
Well, the only thing that we can really do is to become politically active. And by politically, I'm talking about conservative candidates like Ted Cruz and others that have stood up and are fighting for the Constitution. Rand Paul in Kentucky is doing a tremendous job, fighting it almost on a daily basis. But these, I call them lonely voices in the wilderness, we call that morass of Washington, need help, and they need conservative. And we're not paying lip service to these kind of people that say, well, they'll tell you whatever they think you want to hear. Some of my friends are for it, some of my friends are against it. I'm with my friends. That's the typical political coverage that they're giving to the constituency. So what we have to do is get into the process, support the candidates. And I think I mentioned, we were talking one time about what had happened with Ted Cruz and how did he win.
Yeah.
The fact that his opponent in the primary had put $19 million of his own money into that race and had the complete support of the traditional Republican leadership. All of those things were the things that would normally have put somebody over the top, without question, and Ted Cruz would have been buried. But what he did was reach out to the people. He communicated with the people, and thousands of volunteers came forward, went door to door, passing out pamphlets explaining Ted Cruz's position. They got unmanned phone banks. They talked to people, and the result is that he was elected by a substantial margin. That can be done at every level. I'm talking about from a school board all the way through the governor of Kentucky. Things we can do for the congressional races. All of these are coming up in November. And we've got a Senate race, we have House races, and this is where the battle will have to be won.
Well, if the Republicans gain, 5 or 6?
5 or 6 members of the House, they can take control of the House of Representatives in the state of Kentucky for the first time in 100 years. And It's not so much the question of Republican versus Democrat, that the parties have been taken over by liberal, leftist-thinking people who care more about issues and nothing about truth, nothing about
The Constitution.
Constitution, and all of those things. They're saying it's
Freedom.
They're saying it's all irrelevant. Well, it's not. And the administration has, I think, shown unprecedented disdain even for the United States Constitution and the balance of power on the framers of our Constitution that originally set up. And basically he's saying that if Harry Reid can't stop it all, then he will do it by executive order. And all goes on and on and on. And then it moves us over to another question that's really concerns me is the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and what it is causing, and the loss of jobs and 1,000 other things that are happening in the process. Everything's in chaos. Now they keep saying we're going to postponing this and postponing that.
Yeah.
That's to get us past the election. Every employer who is the main focus of our financial base are scared to death about they don't know what's going to happen to them next, either from any one of the federal agencies that overwatch the Department of Labor, the Department of the Environment, on down the line to now with this Obamacare, and they cannot make plans for the future, long-range plans, which is our traditional way of handling things, 5 years minimum. And in that process, they're having to just get into a holding pattern, I call it, to wait and see what really happens. Because what this problem is, and as Harry Reid openly said and called Obamacare the first step of a European-style single-payer health care system. That's the ultimate goal. And if this thing destroys the complete existing structure of health care, the medical community, the insurance community, the hospitals, the administrators, all of that are in a quandary, not knowing what's going to happen next. Doctors are having to decide whether to they cannot really treat a patient anymore because they have to go to a computer and tell them what they can or they can't do. And these are the problems that are increasing and is staying below the radar in terms of, unless you personally have gone to a doctor and experienced what they've gone through and watched their anxiety and frustration, and they can't treat you as a patient anymore unless the federal government says they can.
Because the government controls everything.
This is a very, very heart of the problem, and it's complete control at every level. And they're telling under another major area is Common Core, the complete takeover of the education system. The education system under the federal law.
What do you think of that?
That's a great one. Yeah, they show that one. That says basically it. The federal government is dictating to the states what they can teach, how they can teach it. All of the aspects are now under the control of the federal government under Common Core.
And the parents are
left out completely. And they're even telling the children, your parents don't understand, they don't know. And the breakdown. And I saw a college professor who was very frustrated that he had high school graduates who had very high academic standards in high school coming to college as freshmen that could not write a common sentence, could not fill out any of the basic forms, could not read. And his frustration is, how are they going to write a term paper? And they really can't. So all of these breakdown of the quality of education is another part of dumbing down the process of American people to respond against any of it.
Let me make just a comment here, because you've triggered, that video agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've seen that.
It really is an excellent piece.
And the thing is, this video kind of gives you an understanding of why all these things are happening.
Right.
Okay, we all know you can't leave your house without locking it up and putting a security door on it, and you can't buy stuff like you used to buy it, and the prices are 20 times higher than they used to be, and the school that we used to have the best schools in the world, and now we're what is it, 25th or something, and falling all the time.
Yeah.
And like you say, you go to college and they don't know how to do college work. Now, you say, well, why are all these things happening? And what can we do about it? And the answer is in that movie Agenda. And let me just say, we will send you a free copy of that movie
That'd be excellent.
today if you call that number 893-2444. And you can call it right now. And leave your name, phone number, and address, and we'll send you that because, you know, all of these things are happening, and you want to know, well, why are they happening? And there's a good reason why they're happening. They're happening because people want them to happen. And if you get that movie, Agenda, it's free. We'll send it to you, 893-2444.
And Dr. Simon, this is the critical part. We have to become educated on our own from all the sources that are available.
Right.
And we have to look for them and find them and become informed and to share that information with our friends and neighbors.
Right.
Because everybody is having been put in a what I call almost being blindfolded by the governmental bodies, and we've seen that. And Common Core is a classic example of where this is headed. We've watched the educational system being diluted over the years.
Right.
But this is a major step forward. They set the stages early. They broke down the system. They controlled the school boards and others. They've got into this thing, the teachers' unions, and
Yes.
all of those others who are very fearful. And that gets us to another subject, and that is the homeschooling and the other programs that are available, the charter schools that people are trying to form that are being blocked at every level. There's a movement in Frankfurt to pass a law allowing Common Core to be instigated by the people, and they're being blocked by the KEA and others right now.
Yeah.
Totally, because what happens is, if people abandon this system that exists in Kentucky now and goes to Common Core or to homeschooling, that means the system itself is losing its
Financial
students
base.
and its financial base, because everything is based on, the compensation is based on the average daily attendance. And it also affects the number of jobs that teachers will be required in those schools if they lose their population of the student body. So all of those things, and this is every one of these issues, is to control and to maintain power and to increase your voter bloc to the point that you can't be defeated. And this is their ultimate goal to what they call a one world order.
Right.
This is a part of what the administration has been doing at every level, destroying the military, bringing it down, because the American military has been the world dominating force. That's not fair.
Not fair, right.
And our financial structure, we're too wealthy. We have to share the wealth.
Yeah.
We have to be more like other countries. But at the same time, other countries behind the scenes, like India and China, are prospering without any of those restrictions. We've got a situation where America is becoming weaker at every level, the educational system. And I think it was pretty well summarized by what one of the agendas of the environmentalists who are part of all of this breakdown. It has nothing to do with the environment.
Right.
It has to do with control.
Right.
The stopping of the pipeline. And in the Kyoto Accords, they made a statement that sums it all up. Because the United States and the people of the United States will not voluntarily reduce their consumption of natural resources and other things, it's our responsibility to change the laws and others to make it so that the third world emerging nations can take their rightful place in the global economy. That's a direct quote from their words. And this is where the media and others don't report this kind of information.
See, they don't want freedom. They don't want a constitutional government. They don't want rights that come from God. They want to control the rights.
Right.
They want to control the government
Exactly.
and the Constitution and all of that.
Well, we've got more of these things that are coming at us from so many different levels that it's hard to get a grasp on it.
Let me repeat that.
Sure.
A lot of what you're saying is in this newsletter,
Right.
and we'd like to send this to you free. Just call the number 893-2444. And a lot of things that Ed Holloway is speaking of are in this newsletter, and we'll send that to you free. We'll send you this Common Core bumper sticker if you're already aware of how bad Common Core is. We'll send you that. We'll also send you the agenda video, and it's really important that we get, and we'll pay for it. We'll pay for the postage, everything, because just like Ed has said, we are in trouble, and the key is to get people involved. And I want to say one other thing. Like you say, we need people who will work in the precincts
Right.
and talk with their neighbors. And this same system that Ted Cruz used, we can use.
Exactly.
They're here in Kentucky, and we can do it. And the program is here. And if you can help us elect God-fearing people to leadership in our state, we will show you the program and show you how to use
Right.
it. And we can do a lot.
Well, if you meet with your candidates and find out who they really are and what they really believe, and not get past the political rhetoric, but
Yeah.
get to their core beliefs and their fundamental beliefs in the Constitution and Christian rights,
Yeah.
and what's right and wrong, not cloudy with other things that are issues, and find out. And if you do, basic things such as writing a Dear Neighbor
Yeah.
letter in support of that candidate.
Yeah.
And saying what you understand. I know this.
You told me
person-
that's how you
and-
got elected.
When I ran the first time, I had originally told that, I said, well, it's no problem or anything else, but they decided, the organization, the party, decided to run a candidate against me because he was being blocked from another position that he was supposed to have gotten. They said, no, you just run for state representative. So I had no support from the party or anything else. They were
Oh, my
opposed.
goodness.
And in the process, I went to my friends and others and neighbors and explained who I was, what I believed. And I
Yeah.
got them to write Dear Neighbor letters, other things, go door to door, and I won by better than 2-1 against the party.
Good grief.
So these are the things that can be done, and I've experienced it myself, and that's what I'm trying to tell the people, that individuals make a difference.
The
and-
grassroots.
And when you get to things like a primary, and it's unfortunate, but less than 10% of the cases and 10% of the population vote in the primary, that determines who you'll ultimately have in office in the fall.
Right, right.
And those are the critical points that need to be made, and then every vote counts. People now have been led to believe that, well, my vote doesn't count, they're going to get elected
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And it's only because we have abdicated our responsibility, not
Well,
only
this is
to
very
ourselves.
encouraging what you're saying.
And
That
it can be done, and it has been done in recent times with Cruz and others that are winning elections throughout the country because of the support of the people, not by the government.
we're going to send you that video. It's called Agenda. It's a full-length video. Then we're going to send you the newsletter that's going into a lot of what Ed is talking about. We're going to send you this bumper sticker about Common Core, which is one of the major problems. And we really need your help.
And just make a list. Start with the Obamacare,
Yeah.
Common Core, all of these other issues that are coming at us from multiple levels at the same time. Gets overwhelming. It's hard to think, what can I do? But you can do a lot. The number of people that go to the polls and actually vote don't even bother to pull the lever in a school board race. That's another critical area that has a major impact on our communities.
Yeah.
Jefferson County, for example, the billion-dollar budgets that are going that, all of the things that are going on, the fact that the black community now is becoming outraged at what's happening to their people.
Right.
They're very, very strong supporters of the homeschooling that are going on now
Charter
that people
schools.
don't even know about.
Yeah.
They're working in churches and others, and they want to have the charter schools.
Yes.
They want their own people, and there was a program about a black lady who wrote a books about what needs to be done in the black community to bring them up and not suppress them. Like a lot of the black friends that I've talked to, that says, you know, that we're living in a democratic plantation.
Yeah.
They're being controlled and getting out the votes and other things just as a way. And it's almost as though it's the old adage about the carrot and the stick, holding it out in front. It's coming, and never reaches it. But keep voting for me, and we'll get you this, we'll get you that, and it doesn't ever. The only place, and I think Margaret Thatcher said it better than anybody else I could think of when she said, liberalism works until you run out of other people's money.
Right.
And that's exactly where we're headed right now. The average person, the average worker, over 50% of them in the United States today has less than $10,000 in disposable income. And they're looking at retirement with no base, no foundation at all.
They want to be dependent on the
And
government.
the government is the only entity out there, and that is the most crippling thing. It's happened to thousands of other cultures over the long history of the world. And this thing about world peace, in the history of mankind, in the written history, there's only been 13 years that there isn't a war going on somewhere in the world. It's a human nature, and it's one that we have to control. And I think it was basically what a strong military, a strong economy is
Right.
the best defense against all of the aggression in the world.
Right. Okay, Ed Holloway, thanks, and God bless you, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.
All this stuff is temporary. Money, success, even life is temporary. Jesus, that's eternal.
And that's it?
That's it. That's what we're going with. I'm Professor Radisson. This is Philosophy 150.
This semester, I propose that we refuse to waste our limited time together debating the existence of the big man in the sky. Fill in the papers I've just given you with 3 little words. God is dead.
I can't do what you want. I'm a Christian.